on the bank statement verification overview for fiscal year 2026. This training is presented by the Oregon Department of Education's Child Nutrition Programs, also known as ODE CMP. My name is Ashley Eakins, and I will be presenting today along with Emma Ahern. Before we begin, we have a few housekeeping items for this webinar. Please put all questions into the Q&A or chat box, and Shirley Wu, our TA coordinator, will organize these questions for her and our manager, Megan Tashida, to answer at the end of the session. Our webinar is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube at a later date. Slides for this webinar will be sent to all attendees. In this training, we will go over the learning objectives, what the bank statement verification process is, who is required to complete this process, the overview of annual verification, the steps in the bank statement verification process, and some common questions before we break into your submitted questions. By the time you complete this training, we hope you will understand which type of sponsors are required to complete the annual bank statement verifications related to CACFP fund accounts, and you will understand the steps and timeline to complete Oregon's bank statement verification process. So what is the bank statement verification process? This is an annual financial review of CACFP multi-site sponsors, excluding school food authorities. This process includes a review of 1 month of bank statements and the supporting documents for approved CACFP expenses associated with that month of bank statements. Why do we need to do this verification? Back on August 23, 2023, USDA's Food and Nutrition Services, also known as FNS, released the Child Nutrition Program Integrity Final Rule. There were many changes in that final rule, and one of them required a financial review of sponsoring organizations in the CACFP. Then in 2024, FNS updated the CACFP regulations at 7 CFR 226.7B1, and in May of that year released CACFP Memo 09-2024 Implementation Guidance State Agency Financial Review Requirements. This memo specified the implementation requirements for a 1-month bank statement review, which we will be going over in this training. The intent of this integrity rule is to prevent the misuse of CACFP funds. FNS wants to ensure that reimbursements provided for CACFP are going towards nutritious meals served to CACFP participants, and this is done by requiring state agencies to check bank statements and verify that CACFP reimbursements are being spent on approved CACFP expenses. Who is required to complete this bank statement verification process? In the 2024 memo, it clarified that the 1-month financial review will not apply to all CACFP sponsors and will only apply to non-school food authority multi-site sponsoring organizations. This process does not need to be completed by school districts because state agencies already have other means of financial oversight for those sponsors. And it does not apply to single site sponsors, also known as independent centers, because regular oversight through the budget and administrative reviews are sufficient to determine financial viability for these institutions. We have a few different examples. Let's check and see if the bank statement verification requirement applies to them. Does this apply to school districts? No, as we just mentioned, it does not apply to school districts. So any school districts watching right now can close out of the training. Does it apply to colleges with multiple sites? Yes, it does, because ODE does not have financial oversight of colleges already, unlike K through 12 school districts. Does it apply to a single site childcare? No, it does not apply to any single site childcare centers or any other single site sponsors. And will it apply to a multi-site after-school program? Yes, it will apply to a multi-site after-school program unless the program is sponsored by a school district. Any multi-site sponsor that is not a school food authority will need to have an annual bank statement verification. Sponsors that need a bank statement verification will be reviewed by ODE CMP annually when they do not have an administrative review scheduled for the year. We will be reviewing sponsors in quarterly batches, and sponsors who are being reviewed that quarter will be notified via email. These emails will be sent to the financial office contact, the food program coordinator, and the authorized representative listed in CMP Web. The quarterly announcements via email will take place over the course of the year. Since the CACFP fiscal year starts in October, quarter one announcements will go out around October or November. Quarter two announcements will go out around January or February. Quarter three announcements will go out between April and May, and quarter four announcements will go out July through August. Sponsors who are already receiving a CACFP administrative review in the fiscal year will complete their full financial management review as part of the administrative review instead of through this standalone bank statement verification. This means that if you are getting an administrative review, you do not need to complete the bank statement verification for that year. Here are the steps for the bank statement verification process. First, ODE CMP will notify a sponsor that they are up for an annual bank statement verification. Next, the sponsor will submit all the requested documents within that 2-week time frame. Then, once all documents are submitted, ODE CMP will review the submitted documents. If there are any missing documents, then ODE CMP staff will request the documentation with a turnaround of 2 to 5 days. And once all documents are received, ODE CMP staff will review the documents and determine if it meets the regulatory requirements or if there are findings.
The deadline for submission of all requested documents will be 2 weeks or 14 days from the time that the emails were sent. Documents that will be requested will include a completed bank statement verification checklist. This checklist will be included in the notification email and will guide sponsors on what needs to be submitted. In addition, sponsors will send bank statements with CACFP income and expenses for the month that is requested. The month requested will typically be a few months prior. Then, based on approved CACFP expenses that are on the bank statement, supporting documentation for those expenses must be sent in. This will usually include credit card or debit card statements, receipts, contracts, bills, canceled checks, timesheets, and more. Sponsors should keep in mind that the bank statement month will be different from a test month. The bank statement month references 1 month of your bank statement and works from the bank statement backwards to the supporting documentation in the months previous to the bank statement month in question. In contrast, in a CACFP administrative review, ODE CNP reviews a test month, which looks at 1 month's operation and compares the CACFP claims from that month to the food item receipts and other CACFP expenses spent in that operational month, and then follows the costs through the following months until they are paid off by the sponsor from their bank account. The bank statement verification checklist that will be provided with your notification letter will be very clear about the documentation that is required. ODE CNP will provide resources for sponsors when notifying you of your bank statement verification. The email will include the bank statement verification checklist that was mentioned earlier, and a link to an extended training video that will cover the submission process step by step with examples. Throughout this process, our goal is to verify that sponsors are using CACFP reimbursements for approved CACFP expenses, and that sponsors have a CACFP financial management system in place. This might mean that we reach out via email if there are questions regarding documentation so we can better understand your process. Based on feedback that was provided when we tried out this process with our focus group participants, the process has helped many of them to better understand CACFP financial management requirements and better set them up for completing their budgets each year. Our hope is that this process will be collaborative provide an opportunity for sponsors to learn more about CACFP financial management. We know that sponsors are busy and that sometimes sponsors have staff which are unavailable. ODE CNP will work with you on timelines while ensuring that USDA requirements are being met. If sponsors fail to respond or fail to provide required documents, ODE CNP may need to call findings and potentially even a serious deficiency. Not responding may mean that you are not meeting performance standards of viability, capability, and accountability, and ODE CNP may need to expand the process to a broader administrative review. Situations that will rise to serious deficiencies can include submission of false information or falsification of records, failure to maintain adequate records, such as situations where there is a lack of system in place, and/or failure to perform financial and administrative responsibilities. This, the sponsor is not maintaining most or any CACFP financial documentation. ODE CNP does not like calling serious deficiencies on our sponsors, since we want our sponsors to be successful in operating CACFP. So reach out if you are needing an extension, or even earlier if you are having trouble understanding the requirements. If you would like more information about CACFP financial management requirements, or an explanation of CACFP financial terminology, ODE has multiple resources that can be viewed. For those who want an in-depth overview of CACFP financial management requirements, we recommend reviewing the CACFP financial management training. This hour-long training covers the basics of CACFP financial management, including defining nonprofit food service, budgets, allowable CACFP expenses, and documentation requirements. The companion CACFP financial management workbook, whose cover you can see on the screen, is also. For those who don't have a lot of time, the Financial Management Quick Reference Guide provides a short overview of this topic. All links are being dropped in the chat by Shirley and will be available as links in the description section when we post it as a YouTube video. Now, let's get to the common questions related to this process. First, there's the question of information security. Bank statements contain sensitive information. Who will be able to see the information, and what can I redact? Only select ODE CNP staff who are reviewing your documents will have access to the files. ODE CNP will save and archive submitted documentation in a secure folder. For redaction, sponsors can redact the bank statement account number as long as the last 4 digits are visible. Other account numbers, for example on credit statements, can also be redacted as long as the last 4 digits are available. Here's another question. My finance director is out of the office for the length of the document submission period, 14 days. Can I get an extension? The answer is probably. While ODE CNP will never deny a request outright, flexibility will be dependent on sponsor history and other extenuating circumstances. ODE CNP will most likely be able to work with your team to figure out an extended due date as needed. The food program coordinator and authorized representative listed in CNP Web will be copied on the email, and one of them or another sponsor staff must reach out and work with ODE CNP review team to discuss alternate dates. Now we are going to open it to questions that were submitted during this webinar. Shirley, did we have any questions?
Hi, Emma. We haven't received any questions just yet, but I'm going to leave it open for just a little bit while we wait for questions to come in.
Great.
All right, so we do have some questions that were submitted at another time. The first question is, our organization is very large and our bank statement includes expenses for all departments. Will I need to submit documentation to support expenses not related to CACFP?
Thanks, Shirley. That's a great question. Sponsors will only need to support expenses related to the CACFP. Our instructions for the verification process will include highlighting CACFP expenses, and our team will look for documents associated with those CACFP expenses only.
Thanks, Megan. We have another question. We do not reconcile our books until 2 months after the closure of a month. How will this impact our bank statement verifications?
Another great question. Thank you, Shirley. The bank statement month will be for a few months in the past, so hopefully you will have enough time to reconcile your books by the time we request the bank statements. However, if you have not done so already, you'll still have the 14 days to submit documents back to us. So if the books are not reconciled yet, hopefully within the 2 weeks will be enough time for the organization to get that completed. Be sure to communicate with the ODE CNP staff when the announcement occurs if there's a potential for any delays.
Thanks, Megan. All right, so hearing no additional questions, we will close up our webinar, and I'm going to send this back over to Emma. If you do have additional questions, please feel free to send it over to our ode.communitynutrition@ode.oregon.gov. Thanks.
Thank you, Shirley. And like Shirley said, if you have any more questions after the webinar, please send them over to the Community Nutrition inbox. This training will be posted on YouTube at a later date, and reminders will be included in the Knowing and Growing newsletters. In this webinar, we went over the learning objectives, what is the bank statement verification process, who is required to complete this process, the overview of annual verification, the steps in the bank statement verification process, and questions. ODE supports equity and excellence for every learner. This institution is an equal opportunity provider. Thank you for taking part in this webinar.